Hey y'all, welcome to day 4. This is going to be all about economic impacts of the Industrial Revolution. So we are wrapping up our unit today. Your test will be, if you are in my B-Day classes, your test will be on Friday. If you are in my A-Day class, your test will be on Monday. So please make sure you are continuing to work on your test review as you progress through this week up until test day. It will be due on test day before you come to class, and it must be submitted on Google Classroom. So just a real quick housekeeping there. Okay, so let's jump right on into these economic impacts. So today we're looking at these impacts. Now, during the 1800s, we saw the growth of the middle class. Thanks to the Industrial Revolution, this ends up widening the gap between the rich and the poor. So you're going to see two groups of people. Those who think the government should stay out of business affairs, and then those who think the government needs to be more involved. Guess which side the business owners are on. Go on, guess. Okay, so if you said that the government should stay out, you are absolutely right. Okay, now you have seen this image before. Think back to Unit 3 when we talked about the age of discovery and exploration. This represents the old economic belief of mercantilism. So you should remember that mercantilism is the belief that there was a fixed amount of wealth in the world. It was also believed that if a country were going to become wealthy and therefore have more power, because remember, if you have money, then you have power, that's what makes you strong. So if they were going to have more power, they had to stay wealthy. And the best way to do that was to take these natural and raw materials, these natural resources from other countries, okay? So the raw materials that were found in the colonies, like you see here in this image, they would then be turned into manufactured goods for the mother country, and then the mother country would then trade those manufactured goods for profit. So more exports meant more money in the mother country's treasury. Here's another good representation, a political cartoon of what mercantilism looked like. So you can see, like, here's your mother country, and here are the servants, the maids, the different colonies. They're bringing their gold and silver, foodstuffs, so different agriculture things and raw materials that would be needed as well. They're bringing it to the mother country, and the mother country is really going to benefit from that. All right, so anytime you see this chart in your notes, I need you to skip it, okay? This is for an activity that we are going to do in class. Now, don't skip this part. You still need to listen to this part of the lecture, but you've got to understand this part for the in-class activity. So the rest of the video, we're going to talk about 3 very different economic systems. We're going to talk about capitalism, socialism, and Marxism. So if you would, go ahead and skip down to the capitalism section, the graphic organizer there in your notes. That's where we're going to start. But let me give you a little background info first. So somewhere off to the side of your notes, I need you to write this down. Laissez-faire, okay? Laissez-faire, it is a French term. Okay, and it's a policy that many believed in during the Age of Enlightenment. It's a French term that means let do, or as folks at the time like to interpret it, let people do as they please. Now, economic philosophers at the time argued that when government interfered with or intervened, when they got involved in business affairs, it really hurt the business. But if there were free trade, then economies would prosper. There would be great wealth coming to them. So this leads us to capitalism. Now, capitalism is defined as an economic system in which the factors of production are privately owned and money is invested in business ventures. Okay, so this concept of capitalism was first published in a book titled Wealth of Nations. It was written by Adam Smith. Now, he was a professor at the University of Glasgow in Scotland, and he defended this idea of free trade or a free economy. He thought that economic freedom would guarantee economic success. And there are 4 things you need to know for the what of capitalism. First of all, wealth can be created with manufacturing and agriculture. In other words, a country can become wealthy off of the products it produces in the farming industry. Second, it should be a free enterprise system. So this goes back to that economic policy of laissez-faire. Another detail about capitalism is that business owners or entrepreneurs, as they're also known as, okay, people who run their own businesses, start their own businesses. So business owners run their businesses with one goal in mind, and that is that they want to make a profit. Now, finally, capitalism does not support laws, regulations, or any sort of government interventions in economics. So how is all of that achieved? Well, there are 3 laws. Now, I am so sorry, but for some reason, the 3rd law box got cut off in your notes. So if you would, off to the side, please make a small box where you can write in the 3rd law, okay? All right, so the first law of capitalism is the law of self-interest, or in other words, like they're working for their own good, okay? People are going to work for their own good, to make profit, to make money. They're looking out for themselves. The second law is the law of competition. Now, manufacturers who had the lowest price or manufacturers who had the best quality would see the most profit in a capitalist economy. And finally, the third law is the law of supply and demand. So enough goods have to be produced at the lowest possible price to meet demand in the market economy. So basically, prices and profits depend on the availability of and the demand for the goods. So the problem with capitalism is that it led to an uneven distribution of wealth. Okay, so only a very small percentage of the population was getting rich, and you can see it demonstrated here in this graphic. So you see we have our capitalism is represented here. We've got the people that rule you, like the kings and the wealthy folks. You've got your religious folks. Then you have your military. Then you have like your bourgeoisie, if you remember that term from our French Revolution unit. And finally, you have your like the proletariat, the workers down here at the bottom. Okay. All right. On to socialism. Now, where capitalism has a laissez-faire philosophy, utopian socialism has a philosophy that either the government or the wealthy folks in society must take care of those less fortunate and make an effort to improve their lives. And we have this gentleman to thank for it. This is Robert Owens. He was a British factory owner who improved the working conditions for his workers after seeing the misery and the poverty that they endured every single day. He wrote The New View of Society, and in it he suggested a number of things. So his thoughts were that one, he thought folks should live in settlements. Now, he actually came to the United States in 1824 and began a cooperative community, so a commune, called New Harmony, okay? He wanted it to be a perfect living place, so like a perfect society. Now, while New Harmony only lasted a few years, there were other cooperative communities that popped up across the nation as a result of, they had been inspired by New Harmony. He wanted it to be a place where he thought that folks would work for the common good of society and not selfishly for themselves. So in other words, he didn't think that people would work only to make a profit. He thought that people would work because it would make society better. He believed that public ownership would actually help workers, meaning that the workers should have some ownership in the places that they worked. Okay, and finally, he believed that the profits should be shared. He didn't think that only one person should get richer and richer and richer. Okay, so this leads us to, oh, I forgot I had this in here. Here's a little illustration of kind of what socialism is in general. You got your poor guy over here saying, hey, got any change? Talking to the little tourist-looking guy. There's a guy at the bus stop. So the guy, the tourist-looking guy, maybe he's holding his grocery bag. I don't know. So the guy in the middle, he says, sure, and what's he doing? He's reaching into the other guy's pocket to take the money. All right, so now on to Marxism. So it's also known as communism, okay? Now, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, they wrote the Communist Manifesto, okay? Now, what is it? What is communism? Now, these men believed that society had been split into 2 factions, okay? 2 groups. And you already know the names of these groups. The bourgeoisie, okay? Think of them as the haves, people who have things, and your proletariat. Think of them as the have-nots. Okay, so you've got your rich people, your bourgeoisie, and then you have your proletariat, the people who are working in the factories, the people who are working on these farms, the people who don't have a lot of money. So they believe that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, they believe that economic policy alone was what ruled society. And according to Marx and Engels, the Industrial Revolution did one thing. It made the rich richer and it made the poor poorer. They believed that eventually the proletariat, or the workers, the poor, would rise up against the bourgeoisie. And this meant that the capitalist society would eventually destroy itself from within. Because if you have the workers in the factories and everybody unhappy with the way things are, eventually they're going to rise up and go against the factory owners. Okay. Now, this economic policy, philosophy, communism, Marxism, it influenced men that we're going to talk about in future units. People like Vladimir Lenin from Russia, China's Mao Zedong, and then finally, the recently deceased Fidel Castro, who ruled Cuba for decades. Okay. All right. So that wraps up our unit 8, the Industrial Revolution. Next unit is imperialism. Don't forget that you need to be working on your test review, your online test review. I will do an online test review where you can post questions on Classroom. That will be Thursday night at 8 o'clock. So just jump on Classroom. If you have questions, that's going to be the time to ask. I'll be on from 8 to 8:30. If you see, while you're on the Google Classroom on the test review, if you see a question that you know the answer to from a classmate, feel free to answer it. That's totally fine, okay? Make sure you pay close attention to your deadlines for your test review. The specific times for your own class will be posted on Classroom, so please pay very close attention to that, okay? Other than that, I will see you next class. I'm excited about our activity we're going to do. I think you'll have a lot of fun. See you then.